Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Where can rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. I'm Ace Edwards, right alongside
Connor Baltazar.
And welcome to this week's weekly recap, where we actually, it's somewhat rare that we have football news to cover on a weekly recap, but it's been a few weeks if you haven't noticed. So we do have football staffing news and transfer portal news to talk about. Then we'll talk about the end of the Volleycat season before talking about the men's and women's basketball teams. But let's just go ahead and start with the K-State staffing news. So I think it's easier and shorter to say who isn't returning to the K-State staff or who is returning. And the only ones that haven't been mentioned as leaving are Brian LePack, Buddy Wyatt, and Steve Standard. Everyone is saying that Standard is gone. He may have just not have answered his phone when the goodbye text was being sent, which admittedly very funny. But as I said before, the only one that I'm a little sad about in that group is Matthew Middleton. I thought he might be retained. Buddy Wyatt and Brian LePack, I think, were the favorites. As of right now, two of the coaches have found landing spots. Joe Klanderman is the DC at Baylor now, which is such a weird fit just because Aranda defense and Joe Klanderman don't go together. And then Van Malone has a head coaching gig at Hampton, I believe it is.
Yeah, that's right. Klanderman was kind of starting to sound like he was someone that could be a candidate to stick around, actually. But I don't think that he would have been first pick at DC. I think he would have been like a break in case of emergency, like we can live with it option. And I think he probably saw that and had an opportunity to make a somewhat lateral move. I think, frankly, Baylor right now is a bit of a step down in terms of quality. I mean, obviously, perception-wise, it's pretty much lateral. But, I think that the security of that Baylor job is not very good because Dave Aranda was widely thought to be getting fired at the end of the year. But Baylor, with the change in athletic director, and also just kind of weird timing of coaching vacancies, decided to stick with him for one more season, which I think it's just going to mean that Baylor's going to be really mediocre again next year and be fighting for bowl eligibility. But still a soft landing for Joe Klanderman, which, honestly, I'm happy about. I think he's done a pretty good job here. I think that we could do better, but that doesn't mean I would have been just utterly dismayed about keeping Klanderman. I would have been slightly disappointed, but it would have been like, yeah, okay. Tui, has done such a great job developing guys that it does hurt a bit, but I do think it's obvious that he just doesn't fit what Colin Klein wants, because he's mentioned several times he wants elite, relentless recruiting. And all due respect to Mike Tuiasosopo,
that man does not recruit.
He is truly, in every sense of the word, the complete polar opposite of a relentless recruiter. He is the Eeyore of relentless recruiting, I think, with all respect in the world, because he's really a great, great coach. But otherwise, most of the names I wasn't surprised about, other than, like you said, was Stannard. I did think it was interesting that he wasn't mentioned yet. I don't think it says anything. I'm more just interested in the process there with why was his name not immediately included. But what are you going to do? And then Shadow Van Malone, kind of going the route I think you and I thought. Go down a few levels and end up being a head coach, because he's been pretty public about wanting to be a head coach. Hampton just had a pretty rough year. They went 2-10. So could be a good gig for him to try and turn something around with all the lessons that he's learned this past season. So best of luck to everyone moving on. But yeah, at this point, it kind of seems like we're zeroing in on LePac and Buddy Wyatt to stick around, which I'm totally fine with.
Yeah, because those would definitely, undoubtedly be two of my top three. Again, I don't want to keep rehashing. I apparently am like the biggest Matthew Middleton truther that has ever existed, but I'm fine with all the names leaving. I get the angst about Brian Anderson. I really do. I as a strictly as a coach, I think is how I will word this. He struck me as kind of fine, and he got Deuce Vaughn, who some people think is like, oh, he was an unheralded 3-star recruit that he developed. I mean, Deuce was Deuce when he showed up on day one. And the only reason he wasn't highly thought of was because he was small. DJ, I have no idea how he was a 0-star. And his thing was he just needed to learn the playbook. He had all the tools. I think the best argument for why Brian Anderson should have been retained, honestly, was the back half of Joe Jackson. And then you have to look at the first 3 quarters of Joe Jackson this season. And to me, it turned into one of those, I'll take it or I'll leave it. I don't have strong preferences either way, just strictly as a coach. And all of this entirely depends on whether or not we get perceived upgrades at each of those spots. Because if we let go of Brian Anderson and then, get some, Emporia State's running back coach, for example, then I'm going to have an issue. But for me, I'm willing to give a little bit more grace just because I know that this is going to be building out an entirely new staff.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with Brian Anderson as well. I thought he did a good job, obviously, here at K-State. I think maybe his best job outside of, IDing Deuce and DJ. So I guess maybe what I'm going for here is maybe his most underrated job at K-State is making something out of the running back room in his first year. I think that should be a shining bright spot on his resume. Because, he came in and we had one scholarship running back, I believe, none that had played, and that was Harry Trotter. And he was sitting out 2018 because this was back when before they changed the transfer rules. So he had to sit out a year, and he came in from Louisville. So it's like getting a lot of production. The level of production he got out of the running back room that year was super impressive. Then obviously IDing Deuce Vaughn, and then the development job with DJ Giddens. Some truly remarkable stuff that Brian Anderson has done. But at the same time, I don't think he was irreplaceable as a running backs coach. I think he was a really good one, but a coach the caliber of Colin Klein, I think, could potentially bring in someone just as good, if not better. And you also bring up a good point. He might just bring in like Emporia State's running backs coach, who I don't know who it is, maybe like Gunnar Gundy or something. So we'll see on that front. But a ton of vacancies available right now on the main staff, and I'm sure we'll see a lot of support staff trickling in too. But I'm really curious to see where we go, because we haven't had a lot of staff changes, honestly, in the Kleiman era. A lot of those guys were here the entire time, which is good and bad. But for some of those guys, it was good. Like Buddy Wyatt was I think a really good coach who had a consistently good room. But it does also lead to a little bit of a stale feel in some rooms, especially on defense. There was not much movement in that area.
Yeah, I'll also say that before we move on to the new hires, I hope you're excited for Mike Gundy, K-State wide receivers coach.
That would be so fascinating to me. I don't know what to say. That would explain the Gunnar Gundy running backs coach hire that we are reporting on as real information here at the Aggieville Alleycats.
Yeah. Anyway, so the two newest hires are, well, one's coordinator technically and one's support staff, but saying support staff for the hire is a little, I want to say, diminutive, because it is the support staff hire. The new position, well, not new position, but relatively new position of K-State football general manager, which, saying the words general manager in college sports feels very strange. But given who the general manager is, I mean, I don't think that realistically there could have been a significantly better hire. And it's Trace Scott being named as general manager. You may be asking yourself, well, who is Trace Scott? You may recognize the name because he was a former K-State quarterback and went to Mill Valley, which is the high school alma mater of my current girlfriend. That's just a fun fact for you. They also kicked the crap out of Pittsburgh multiple times in the high school case in the Kansas high school state playoffs. Yes, I am bitter. But Trey Scott's also been around the NFL for a while. So he carries knowledge with him sort of at all three levels of the game. You know, at the Kansas level, he was a Kansas high school grad. He understands K-State in the realm of college sports because he played at K-State. And he has upper level knowledge of how NFL teams both scout and collect their roster. So this is, I don't want to call it the perfect hire because I'm not the biggest fan of using the word perfect to describe anything because just about anything has flaws. I am struggling to see an on-paper flaw with this hire, especially given how well Trey Scott seems to understand not only college sports, but K-State from a vertical perspective.
Yeah, I agree. I really think the only holes that you could poke in this are that most of his experience is at the professional level and not the college level, which I think up until the last few years would have actually been like a pretty big point in his favor. But now it's like kind of inconclusive just because of how crazy and weird the college game has been. But again, I'm nitpicking there, and even though I'm saying that, I honestly don't believe it. I'm just kind of looking for like things to kind of knock on him with. I mean, like he was on he was on K-State's team. He was a student coach here, and was able to stick around at the Raiders through probably like a dozen GMs. And I'm exaggerating. It was probably like 3 or 4, but I mean, any guy is able to stick around through 3 separate sort of front office administrations at the professional level is someone that they see as very valuable. So I think that says a lot about Trey Scott. And then equally as interesting, he leaves that side of the business and goes to the other end to work on the player agent side. All very interesting stuff. And I'm really curious to see how it works out with him here. I don't think that we'll probably hear from him that much, though. I mean, you hear a lot more from professional GMs, I think, than you do at the college level, because I think coaches have, I think, maybe a lot more say over roster construction and recruiting than they might at the pro level. That's not to say like they don't at the pro level, but I mean, recruiting is still heavily, coach centric, and GMs, I think right now are going to be more allocating resources, maybe a little talent ID, and probably keeping guys in and identifying needs and weak spots and looking to the future. So I'm very curious to see if we get to hear much from Trey Scott. I imagine we won't. We don't typically hear much from the support staff people other than Taylor Bratt. So I don't know, but still on paper, very good hire.
if you're looking for, I know that you mentioned, looking for flaws. The main place he worked was with the Raiders in talent ID, and outside of Max Crosby and I guess Colton Miller, they haven't been the greatest at that. However, he's also not the person that is turning in the draft picks. So for the sake of my narrative, he has a perfect scouting book that has the perfect report down to the minute stats that every player is going to get in each season. And he has just dutifully been ignored by the higher ups at the Raiders because Mark Davis has a bowl cut and a Motorola.
I think you're 100% right there, man.
Yeah, in a new era of college football, I think that's a very good hire. And the other hire is technically a coordinator, but not an offensive or defensive one. It is rather a special teams coordinator, which I know people on K-State Twitter and on message boards have been clamoring for a while. And it's another familiar face, and that's Stanton Weber. Not Stan Weber, not Landry Weber. There are a lot of Webers in the K-State family tree, but Stanton Weber, who was at K-State for a little while, mostly as a player, and then he was at South Carolina. Then, most recently, he was in Toledo to be their special teams coordinator. Toledo was a very, very highly respected special teams unit, which I think that's always been weirdly one of Toledo's things. Like, they're very much a win in the margins team, which that goes back even when Matt Campbell was there. But it's a proven special teams hire, and I assume this means that Nate Katzer is just gone. Oh, well. But we have a special teams coordinator now.
Yeah, I'm with you on Katzer. I would imagine he's probably gone. He, I think, was kind of a climbing guy. And for what it's worth, special teams, I think, did get a bit better this year. Like, I know that we love to bag on Katzer, and like I think it's mostly fair. Credit where credit's due. I think we did take a bit of a step forward this year in special teams. They still obviously weren't to the standard that we used to see under Bill Snyder and even like those early climbing teams, but it still got a bit better. But yeah, Stan Weber, he is really, really well thought of the special teams coaching world. He's still very young, but I mean, he got to start not only as a player at K-State, but also as a coach. He was a grad assistant, and then was a special teams quality control coach in 2019 and 2020 under Coach Kleinman, and then moved on, spent some time at South Carolina. Now he's Toledo. So he's been around. Toledo was really good this year. They were in a tie for second in the MAC, and just barely missed out on making the MAC championship. So part of a really good squad there. And he's coming into a pretty decent situation as well, at least with the kicker, Luis Rodriguez. Was a very effective kicker for K-State this past year. We also got a kicker from the KC area, Max Thomas, then Cub Patton. He is on the roster, was, I think, slated to be the starter this year, but hurt his knee in the offseason. So I have a stable of kickers here. Did lose Tegan Cobb, the kicker / punter that's been on the roster, but hasn't played yet. But Stanton, obviously very highly thought of. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do. And we like to, on this show, kind of chastise people that only bring up names of former players when we're thinking of coaches to have on staff. Typically, that's not the best idea, or at the very least, you should cast a wider net than just former players. But with Stanton, this honestly would have been my first choice to be a special teams coordinator at K-State. And we got him. And honestly, though, even though we talk about casting a wider net than just guys that played here, sometimes it is really a pro and a benefit to have someone that understands kind of the pride that K-State has taken to special teams, and also someone just familiar with the place. We don't have to sell Stanton on Manhattan in the hiring process. Like, he chose to be here. Like,
several times.
Yeah, the Weber family is very familiar with Manhattan. So may have to keep the radio broadcast going some in the future in case we make any big special teams plays, because I'm sure that Stan will just have an aneurysm on the radio call.
The Stanurism.
Yes, actually, that's everybody clapped for Ace. That was really good. Shut off the dome.
Thank you.
But I'm really excited to see what he can do. And even though we did have some good special teams moments this year, I'd like us to go from special teams decent back to special teams dominant in that area of football.
So those are the staff hires. Still nothing else really in terms of who else is going to be hired. I imagine some of that will be released sooner rather than later, and it entirely depends on how long Texas A&M goes into the college football playoff. I think that's also a factor. But there are also a few names that have been announced to be leaving K-State. The two new ones, and there are going to be a lot more names that end up leaving K-State. It'll be a very busy transfer portal season for K-State, both in terms of in and out. The two new names that are out are Kalen Barta and Jaquise Bradley-Demps, both wide receivers, both really hadn't played. Kalen Barta made the move to receiver from safety, and that's never a good sign whenever you're asked to make that move. And then Jaquise Bradley-Demps, I don't think that he is a fit in a non-Matthew Middleton coached wide receiver room, because, and this is entirely a philosophy thing, Matthew Middleton almost exclusively recruited playmakers at wide receiver, not technicians, not really route runners, but guys who can do something special when they get the ball in their hands. And I think that there are a few people on the roster who are just going to be casualties of that. I will say that the three exceptions that I have a inkling that are going to stick around. No, we'll go two. Is Adonis Moise and Larry Porter IV. I will be distraught if LP4 leaves, because he is probably the most complete receiver recruit that we have had. And then Adonis Moise, this year was trying to develop into more of the deep threat, and he wasn't there yet, but you could definitely see him developing each game as it went on. I mean, if you got to look at some special film for Arizona, you could see Adonis Moise breaking open a lot more than I think people realized in that game. But yeah, there are going to be more people that leave. I think it's just going to be a matter of keeping the core. And if I had to say, if I had to pick one name in each room to keep, it would be Avery Johnson, Joe Jackson. Do I pick between Jace and Jerron? I would pick Jace, then Oakley, offensive lineman, Pastore, and Hawkins, Massey, however that pans out. Defensive end is Ryan Davis or Toby Osunsanmi. I would pick Toby. Nose tackle, probably Mac Truck. Linebacker, Jake Clifton. So on and so forth.
Yeah. It's too bad to see JSD leave, because we had two guys in that receiver class in JSD and Trey Davis that we were both really high on out of high school, and just neither of them really worked out the way that we hoped. Trey Davis was a one and done, and JSD played very, very sparingly this year. He randomly got like 3 or 4 like meaningful snaps against KU, which was really strange. But he wasn't targeted. So too bad to lose him. Then Kalen Barta. seemingly always becomes just like a demon in college football 25
Yep.
at safety. I don't know why. It's him and Jordan Allen just are complete menaces on defense. Then other than that, Tegan Cobb, who I mentioned earlier, he's in the portal. He came here as a kicker / punter, and I don't think ever saw the field. I can't think of anyone else. I think we brought up everyone else that's leaving, but it's very early in the portal cycle. I imagine that we're going to see more, probably a lot more at this point. Granted, not as much as maybe some places, Colorado the first year or two.
Well, I think that's a different case where Dion booted everyone. I don't think Klein is there are going to be people that get told you're not going to play here or leave. I don't think that Klein is going to take 70 to 80% of the roster and punt them.
Yeah, you're probably right, especially because I think absent just hitting on everybody in the portal like Indiana, like you're just going to take a hit year one. I think if you do that, because you lose out on all the development. Now you might bring in guys that are maybe more talented, like on paper, but you won't have been present for any prior development they've had, so you don't have like that like history. You don't have like a chain showing you like these are the steps this guy's taken. So there's some pros and cons, I guess, to keeping guys around and kicking them out, going to the portal for maybe someone that's on paper more talented. But I'm curious to see who sticks around and who doesn't, walk-ons or not. I imagine we're going to get into numbers that are probably going to alarm a lot of K-State fans. That's just kind of the name of the game, especially with the coaching change. If we keep Buddy Wyatt around, I'm hopeful that we'll keep most of those guys because there's a lot of talent in that room. Even though they didn't have quite the year I was hoping that they would. Another guy that I really, really hope we hold on to is Malcolm Alcorn Crowder. I think he came on in a big way this year and was everything I thought he could be as a pass rushing defensive tackle and even more. Like when I watch Malcolm Alcorn Crowder pass rush as a 3-tech, I honestly think that he's someone that could go and get poached by like a upper third SEC school. Like that's like his level of athleticism for his size that I see. So that's one of the only guys I'm really on pins and needles about, I'd say. Everyone else I feel either safe about them staying or I'm indifferent about them leaving.
I am a little worried about Logan Bartley.
That's
the only other one that I'm like, and Donovan McIntosh, but even then, there's no one in the corner room that I feel like is irreplaceable. Malcolm Alcorn Crowder and Logan Bartley, I think, are the closest pieces to irreplaceable. Ryan Davis and Toby Osunsanmi are both really, really good. We would just have to fork a lot of money to attract someone, but those people exist. I'm not sure we're going to find another Malcolm Alcorn Crowder or Logan Bartley.
Yeah, especially we're not finding another Malcolm Alcorn Crowder in the JUCO ranks. And now, fingers crossed, Adrian Becca-Bellet becomes Malcolm Alcorn Crowder. So we'll hold out for that. But I don't know. But there's also on defense, kind of expanding the discussion here since it feels topical. We also don't know what scheme we're going to run in the future. We may stick with this kind of like a 4-2-5 with ever so slight hybrid tendencies when Ryan Davis plays. And we may go back to a 3-man front. We might go true 4. We might go multiple. I'm very curious to see what we do there. The offense, I imagine that we've really seen it already. It's called 2022 and 2023 K-State football. Go watch some highlights, and that's the offense. But the defense, I could really be anything because Klein is a offensive mind. That's obviously his game. So defense, he's still going to have his fingerprints on it, but I think he's going to defer a lot of control to the defensive coordinator, whoever that is. So I'm curious what direction we go in there and how that affects the personnel we currently have.
I agree with you, and I think that the DC is going to get a lot of deference. I don't think the OC is going to get that same luxury.
I think you're right. I think Klein, especially early, is going to kind of be the de facto OC in some ways, because I think he might struggle to let go of that. Maybe even he'll be a play calling head coach. I kind of hope not, but I hope he can find someone that he trusts to call the plays at the very least. But I imagine that this is going to be through and through Klein offense, especially early in his tenure. But maybe
Andy Kotelnicki.
Sure, yeah, I'll take that. Oh, you know what? At DC, let's just go get Jim Knowles since he's not staying at Penn State. So I think Tennessee's going to get him. But
yeah, no, Tennessee's getting Jim Knowles, but
yeah, I would take Kotelnicki. That would be just a thumb in the eye of Lance Leipold as well.
Like, so funny. It's not going to happen, but it'd be so funny.
To be fair, that's like the 13th best thing about getting Andy Kotelnicki, because everything else is about how great of a coach he is. But yeah, I don't expect that, but that'd be pretty cool if we did do it.
It'd be funny. But we'll be watching the coaching carousel with great interest, also watching the portal, see how that develops. But now we can talk about the other sports. Starting with the end of the Alleycats season, they went to Lincoln, beat San Diego. Then they got 0-3'd, but it wasn't an embarrassing 0-3 up against Nebraska. Like they didn't get completely mollywopped. Yes, they got 0-3'd, but they didn't look like they were playing a different sport. So that's the end of the Alleycats season. God, we shouldn't have been on that 8-9 line. We shouldn't have been sacrificed to the Nebraska volleyball gods, but it was a successful season. I think it was a successful season that definitely had its ups and downs. An 18-10 record, some confusing losses, but also some big victories for K-State. So it's another year of really solid development, and a bunch of pieces are going to be coming back next year as well.
Yeah, happy with the season. Obviously, it doesn't end the way that you hope with losing to Nebraska, but honestly, we did play them pretty well. I thought. In fact, we had, I think, one of the better performances, not just against Nebraska all year, but in Lincoln specifically all year. I think this was one of the better shows against Nebraska. Utah got a set on them in Lincoln, but that's it. Oh, no, Pitt got a set on them in the first match of the year. So they only gave up 2 sets at home all year. And we played them very close. Some of the scores were really Nebraska kind of pulling away late in the set. But we had several where we kind of got out to some hot starts. And we played, I think, one of our best matches of the year. But Nebraska is really just like a hive mind, like they're like the Borg. Like they just know exactly what everyone else is going to do at any given time. So unfortunate. And I always hate losing to Nebraska because I hate them. But, I'm not surprised by this outcome. And Shaylee Myers breached 1,000 career kills in this match. So she deserves a lot of credit for that. We didn't hit well in this match, but we did a good job defensively, I was pretty happy with that. So, again, too bad to end the season the way that we did, but only one team gets to end with a win. So, happy about that. And we've had a few portal entries as well, which does stink. Anaya Clinton is in the portal. Simone Sims and Mackenzie Jones, all three of them have entered the portal. Clinton went through senior day, so that wasn't really a surprise. I mean, she gave 4 years to K-State. Simone Sims does actually really hurt. I thought she was great this year and has been really good her whole career, but she's going to go get paid a lot of money, I think, by Texas, I think. And then Mackenzie Jones just hasn't ever broken through, so she'll probably drop down a level. But a lot of good players coming in, and I imagine for the first time in like a year or two, we're going to be a little active in the transfer portal here at K-State.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that develops. I don't really have any other thoughts on the Alleycats. I kind of want to speed run the men's games because you have a 11-point loss to Seton Hall, then a doubling up of the worst team in college basketball right now. For the men's team, we've come so far in where I was excited to watch them towards the beginning of the year. And even when they lost to Nebraska, I was like, oh, this team could still be pretty fun to watch. And then then the other shoe dropped, and I'm just not having fun anymore. We seemingly broke PJ Haggerty and made him worse than he was at the beginning of the season. Can't hit his free throws anymore, and he's not getting the fouls called on him. No one else is really, popping, I suppose to say. Andre Kostic is quite clearly in the doghouse, and they absolutely refuse to play him. The only two players that I actually think are playing well are David Castillo and Nate Johnson, and even Nate Johnson's up and down.
Yeah. Bashir, when he's hitting his shots, is obviously like a very valuable player. That's his limitation, I guess, is he's just not a good defender, and like he really is a one-trick pony, but he is very, 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 very good at that one trick. So when the shots fall, like he is like all Big 12, but when they aren't, he's just a liability. He doesn't going to play much. But yeah, this Seton Hall loss was just absolutely absurd in every sense of the word. I mean, when is the last time K-State as a team shot 15 of 35 from the free throw line in the game? Like, I unfortunately went to this game because I was just so hopped up on Colin Klein drugs, and I went to see like the same Q&A that he'd already done like 3 or 4 times, except with Wyatt instead of with like other people, I guess. But yeah, this was competitive in the first half. Seton Hall ended on a good run, and man, it just got rough in the second half. We made it look a lot closer than it was at the very tail end of this game, but this was a real spirit breaker, if there was any left, I suppose. We were missing a ton of open threes. David Castillo, 1 of 8 against Seton Hall. That just sucks. But PJ Haggerty going 5 of 12 at the free throw line. Like, it was at the point where I honestly thought that he was hurt. That's kind of how I was looking at it. I was like, there's just no way that PJ Haggerty is fully healthy, because he would be making more free throws if he was. And maybe that's the truth. Maybe it is just like he's going through like the biggest like confidence crisis of his entire career. But gosh, K-State 6 of 30 from 3, 15 of 35 at the line. Man, and 16 turnovers on top of it. 6 of them from PJ, just driving and losing it. Doreen Buka played well in this game.
Good job, Doreen Buka. Everyone's favorite Romanian that everyone keeps calling Italian. Yes, he was born in Italy, but he's ethnically Romanian.
Yeah. If K-State shot like season average from the free throw line in this game, this is a game that they had a chance to win. Because I think we're like, gosh, what are we shooting from the line this year?
I want to say it's somewhere in like the 70s or 80s.
69.9%. So, which I think, I don't know how good that is relative to everything else. I'm sure this game is not helping.
No.
But that's like 24 or 25 made free throws against 35. Like that makes this a 78 to like 76 or 77 game. That totally changes the tenor late in this one. So make your free throws. They're free for a reason. They're not
free for a reason.
They're not $1.50 throws. Like
they're not dollar store throws. Like they're free. You get to take them.
Yeah. It's like some of them are BOGO, to be fair. But just hit your free throws.
And then there's nothing to gain by beating Mississippi Valley State. That's it.
We definitely looked a lot better against this glorified JUCO team. Yeah, like this team sucks, and we took advantage of that. It's great, but I guess the only thing I want to note is that Mississippi Valley State, the advanced analytics project them to be 20-point underdogs against Washburn. So.
The next game for K-State is up against Creighton this Saturday on national television to get Big Boy Fox. I would like to not be embarrassed on national television, please.
I really hope so too, especially because Creighton's actually been having a pretty rough start to their year as well. They're 5-4, and they have been obliterated by Gonzaga. Lost to Baylor, got blown out by Iowa State, and then got blown out by 21 by Nebraska in Lincoln. So we nearly beat Nebraska somehow, who was undefeated and potentially going to break their eternal curse of not winning a tournament game this year. But Creighton's not a very good basketball team. However, the counter to it, and it's a fair counter, is we are also not a very good basketball team. So I'll be curious to see if the stoppable force or movable object is able to come away with a victory.
Yeah. Also, the Seton Hall coach called our team soft in a huddle. I don't think he's wrong. I think that I hate to be reactionary. I don't even think it's reactionary at this point. I don't think K-State is going anywhere with Jerome Tang as head coach, which is a shame because on like a purely human level, I think Jerome Tang is a good dude. He's just quite clearly not the right basketball coach for K-State, and he's not fit to be a head coach. He got exceedingly lucky by drawing 2 All-Americans, one with exceedingly weird circumstances surrounding him, and the other being a Marquise Noel, who is a unicorn. And if you can't get it done with this roster, you can't get it done. Like that, end of story, you can't get it done. And unfortunately, to end on a downer, I think we're stuck. I think we're stuck with him for a while.
Yeah. All the flowers in the world to Gene for making a layup on a Little Tykes hoop with the Klein hire, but on the flip side here, he did lock us in effectively with Jerome Tang several more years because of just the enormous buyout. Like theoretically, I think we could afford it, like purely numbers wise, like if with like the donors. However, we can't afford to have a conscious basketball program, increase funding to football, and fire Jerome Tang at the same time. You can only have two of those three things. So I think right now we're just going to bite the bullet with Coach Tang and probably not give him this much NIL funding ever again because it doesn't matter. And just ride it out in the fall. Then let Pete Hughes save us in the spring. Anna and Travis Geffert with track, future national champions, the KleinCats. They added 3 more commits. They did. One of them, his PR in one of his events would have been the national champion mark at outdoors last year. So, we try not to talk about track too much because it's just never really gone that well. But
No. But when we win an Addy in track, it will be exciting times.
Yeah, and they are putting together just an absurdly talented roster, and I'm really liking what Travis Geffert and company are putting together here.
Yeah, I will say that Jerome Tang's buyout gets lowered if Gene Taylor leaves. I'm just going to leave that there.
For what it's worth, that provision is if someone hires him away.
North Dakota State. I have an idea.
Fargo Supper Club, we need you one last time. If you are listening, please.
Anyway, now we can talk about the women's team. They had, if you want to talk about the epitome of the women's team, they beat number 13 in the country in Ole Miss, then drop a game against a mid-South San Diego State team. Yeah, that's this team. They could beat anyone. They could lose to anyone. The Ole Miss game, I think, could best be described as the Jordan Spicer coming out party. She had 19 points, led the team. Tez Heel had 11, then Taryn Sides had 13. Gina Garcia wasn't particularly efficient, but she did get 9 points. So, all in all, it was a good game. And Brandy Herod, I think, ended up getting the closing shot in this game. And again, beating number 13 in the country, good. You have the talent to do that. You've shown that you can do it now. Then you drop a stinker up against San Diego State at home, of all places.
Yeah, that was a weird turn of events here. Because on one hand, of course, beating Ole Miss in a neutral venue, you're like, wow, okay, maybe this team is finally taking a turn. They played really good defense, and they hit big shots when they needed to. They hit their free throws with consistency. Jordan Spicer was on the All Big 12 team this past week because of it. Then, of course, Brandy Herod. I'm getting the buzzer beater and adding 7 rebounds. All great stuff. But then you just go home and just get dominated in the middle 2 quarters of this game against San Diego State. I mean, San Diego State wins the second and third quarter 18-8 and 19-8, respectively. And that's, by my math, not very good. So I don't get this team, really. Other than being consistently inconsistent, this is both a disappointing start to the year and also surprising. And, obviously this win against Ole Miss, which I did not expect. But I think the telling stat from this game against San Diego State, and I was absolutely just completely taken aback when I heard this stat. And I don't know if you've heard it, Ace, but I'm going to share it now. On layups in this game, we went 8 of 26 on layups in this game. and then turned it over 20 times. So we had more than double the amount of turnovers as we did made layups in this game. So,
no.
So when you put it in that light, frankly, it's shocking that it was even this close because 8 of 26 on layups. I mean, those are like high school numbers, like, top team in like 6A, like taking on like a middling 3A team. Like, it's that sort of dynamic here, except this is Kansas State University and San Diego State. I know San Diego State won their conference last year and went to the tournament. I don't really care. We should have won this game, and I'm very frustrated by the outcome. I know I'm not the only one, but man, this really sucked. Perhaps the worst offense of all is that it was Education Day. 3,500 elementary school kids there, and they didn't even get to 67 points. Why even have the kids there if you're not going to get to 67 points? That's my question.
There was a point in the game, and there was footage of it.
I know they did the 6-7 cam, but that's manufactured corporate 6-7, if you ask me. I need the real thing.
I wish I had the spray bottle with me right now.
You can't hurt me anymore. I don't live.
You live 40 minutes away. I have a final in the morning at 8 a.m. I don't care. Yeah, here's fine. We'll give the people a taste of what a post Alleycats episode conversation is like. I have a final the morning that this comes out, so by the time you're listening to it, it will almost certainly be done. I spent my entire time prepping for this exam, thinking, it's going to be a typed exam, because if you have an essay exam in law school, about 99 times out of 100, it's going to be a typed exam because lawyers have really bad handwriting. I get notice about 24 hours ago at the time of recording that no, it is going to be a handwritten exam, which,
really?
Yeah, so congratulations. I'm not punting on that exam. I am saying that I am not going to put near as much detail into it as I would have if I was able to type it, because I haven't done a handwritten exam since like sophomore year of college.
It's been a while for me. I think most, if not all of them in law school for the written portions are always typed. Maybe it's like an anti-AI measure, but they have browser lockdown.
They have browser lockdown, and it's open book and like open outline.
So open book, open outline, but written. That's weird. What? I'll ask you after.
Environmental law.
Okay, I don't know who teaches that, but yeah.
Anyway, I'll tell you after the episode. But do you have any final notes?
This is a kind of a weird episode. The vibes are all over the place this week, I fear. But I think things generally, though, are looking up, especially compared to where we were just 10 days ago. But I'm optimistic for the future of K-State sports. I'm really looking forward to seeing the staff we put together. I'm looking forward to getting my throwback Cats hat at the K-State BYU game and then leaving. And then I'm looking forward to basketball being done. We can talk about the Cats, the only other K-State sport that matters.
Yeah, it should be fun. Maybe we get Brian on to do another preview, because that was fun last year.
That was fun. I'd like to have Brian on again. For what it's worth, I should also mention women's basketball does matter, but the men...
There is no K-State men's basketball team.
There certainly is not.
All right. Well, with that being said, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. If you want to follow or contact the show, you can follow us just about anywhere at Aggieville Alleycats. And if you want to email us, we're AggieVilleAlleycats@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on a more personal note, I'm at ACEdwards00.
I am Connor Boutsler, capital C, capital B.
And if you want to support the show financially, please be sure to check out the official Aggieville Alleycats merch store. Link found in our podcast and Twitter bio. But most importantly, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. We'll come rain, shine, or anything in between. We're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. Stay safe, Alleycats.